Of the big angles covered on this breaking news for you this morning. We've got expert analysis, all kinds of great folks standing by. Let's start right now with Daily Caller White House correspondent Amber Athey. And Amber, obviously the big story overnight was the surprising and early end to the summit between Trump and Kim Jong-un with no agreement being signed. Do we know anything more now about where things went wrong, frankly?
Right. So basically what happened overnight was we heard Kim Jong-un tell Western reporters, which was unprecedented, he doesn't usually speak to reporters, that he was open to denuclearization in North Korea. And then all of a sudden we started hearing that the plans had changed, that Trump's presser had been moved up to 2 p.m. local time as opposed to 4 p.m., and that the summit was wrapping up early, and then Trump was headed back to the United States. And it seems that where talks broke down was that President Trump was not willing to lift sanctions in exchange for only partial denuclearization, and he was not willing to lift sanctions prior to North Korea denuclearizing. So that's where the talks broke down. There are no plans for another summit at this point, but both sides seem optimistic that they'll continue keeping those lines of communication open.
Let's bring in Jonathan Honig with CapitalistPig.com. Investor reaction was swiftly to the downside in the immediate aftermath of the change of plans, the no deal being announced, Jonathan. But how do you think we end today?
Well, I mean, I think it is a lot to depend probably more on economic factors here at home, specifically with the U.S. market. Now, South Korea, however, is a different story. You saw that market fall pretty sharply following this pretty surprising news of the secession of this summit. And it leaves us, unfortunately, with not a lot of the president's goals really accomplished. No denuclearization, but plenty of legitimization of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. So not a great news, I think, from the American perspective. But when it comes to the market, it still is a bull market, albeit a kind of a tired one at that. Yesterday, stocks like Merck, like Cisco, new all-time high, new 52-week highs. So still disappointment overnight, but it's going to take a bigger, I think, perils to dethrone this bull market than just this summit wrapping up.
Well, let's bring in Todd Horwitz, chief strategist at BubbaTrading.com. Todd, because obviously this market has got a lot to watch now, not just the early ending to this summit with no agreement signed between the two nations, but also we are in the middle of these ongoing trade negotiations with China. The Chinese and the North Korean have a tight relationship, and the Chinese have been accused of, frankly, laundering money for the North Koreans. Does today's events, in your opinion, Todd, play into what happens between the China and the U.S.?
Good morning, Cheryl. I don't think there's anything really to what happened here. Again, this news was not a total shock. It's shocking because we thought there was going to be a press conference, but at the end of the day, the markets right now want to go higher. They want to churn higher. They're on no volume. There is no fear to the market. I mean, if you look at the fear assets like the volatility index or whatever, there is no fear. So right now, the markets are grinding higher, but they are doing so on very light volume and on not a lot of conviction. So we'll see how it plays out. I don't think this will have any real effect because I think the news itself really gets priced in China itself. I think a deal has already been priced into these equities. I mean, we're up 20% almost from the bottoms here in the NASDAQ. So that's telling me that the markets have said, okay, there's going to be a deal in China. The only question is when, and I think that's really where the issue comes into.
Let's bring in Doug Bando, the senior fellow at the Cato Institute. Doug, my question for you is the crown jewel of North Korea's nuclear ambitions is their facility Yongbyon. That was, President Trump said that facility was discussed, and it's a massive facility, specifically in these denuclearization talks with Chairman Kim. Do we fully expect them to completely dismantle that facility and others?
Well, the U.S. position has always been complete denuclearization. That's regarded as probably unrealistic by a lot of people. To my mind, what the president has achieved is now talking between the U.S. and North Korea is normal. That's very good. What we have to do here is try to break this up into pieces and get what we can get. If we can close Yongbyon, that's a major achievement. You don't give them everything, you give them something. And that's a place for normal diplomacy. And I think the good news is they have walked away not angry, as the president indicated. They've walked away willing to talk and move forward. So I'm not terribly upset with this. The idea you'd solve it all in one gulp, I think, was probably never realistic. This just tells us there's a lot of hard work to do ahead.
You know, Amber, one of the things that we were doing as we were listening to that press conference with Donald Trump and, of course, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, is Mike Pompeo made it very clear. We're closer today than we were 36 hours ago. So you did have a bit of a positive spin from the Secretary of State, and that these discussions will continue. No confirmation of a third summit, but certainly that is a possibility. If you were to, the time frame, do you think, for all of this, for us to get more kind of movement forward with the North Koreans?
It's really impossible to say. Even President Donald Trump wouldn't make a prediction when he was asked that at the presser. He said it could happen very soon that we have another summit. It could take a really long time. So I would be hesitant to put a time frame on it. I think the important thing here is that President Trump showed that he's not willing to accept a deal that is not favorable to the United States. He would rather wait and work hard on this and take the time to do it right than to rush into something that is not favorable to the U.S.
Michael Lee with Altium Wealth Management. What is the investor takeaway from all of this?
That, you know, at least we did not move backwards, that they'll most likely continue talking, and that the threat of nuclear war between the U.S. and North Korea is becoming a smaller and smaller possibility. And that's, I think, ultimately a good thing, not only for markets, but for the world.